No one in the Galactic Assembly expected anything important from the human. Ethan Cole stood alone near the outer wall of the Great Hall, feeling small under the massive, glowing ceiling. The air shimmered with strange lights and alien symbols that moved like living things. Hundreds of alien species filled the chamber, tall ones, wide ones, winged ones, scaled ones. Their voices overlapped in sharp tones and deep echoes. Ethan understood only some of it through his translator, but he understood the feeling very well. Humans did not belong here, at least. That was how everyone else seemed to think. Ethan adjusted the stiff uniform he had been given. It was not made for a human body. Nothing here was. Humanity was new to the stars, dragged into galactic politics before they were ready. Most species saw Earth as loud, emotional, and dangerously unpredictable. Today's assembly was especially tense. At the center of the hall stood Princess Valera of the Karai. She was impossible to ignore. Her silver-blue skin reflected the lights above, and her eyes glowed softly, like distant suns. She stood perfectly still while powerful leaders argued around her. Among her people, she was known for one thing above all else: absolute honor. The Karai believed words were sacred. Promise spoken in public could not be broken. A vow was stronger than law. This belief had shaped their entire civilization. Ethan did not know any of this. The argument reached a breaking point when an older alien delegate turned his attention toward the human section. "And what of Earth?" the alien said loudly, his voice filled with mockery. "Why is this fragile species even allowed here? What do they offer the galaxy besides noise and chaos?" Laughter rippled through the hall. Ethan felt heat rush to his face. His heart pounded hard in his chest. He had been warned to stay quiet. Humans were observers, not decision-makers. But something inside him snapped. Before he could stop himself, he stepped forward. "If strength is what you respect," Ethan said, his voice shaking but clear, "then I offer myself." The laughter faded. Ethan swallowed and kept going, not fully understanding what he was saying anymore. "I offer my life, my loyalty, and my service," he said. "Freely, I bind myself in honor to Princess Valera of the Karai." For a moment, the galaxy stopped breathing. Ethan's mind screamed at him to stop. This was a joke. A stupid, desperate joke to break the tension. He expected guards to grab him. He expected laughter to return, even louder than before. Instead, Princess Valera turned toward him. She studied him carefully, not like a ruler examining a subject, like a person searching for truth. Then she stepped forward and placed her hand over her chest. "I accept," she said. Calmly, the hall exploded into chaos. Voices shouted. Translators screamed warnings. Several alien leaders stood in shock. Others looked at Ethan with sudden fear. Ethan's knees felt weak. He whispered. The translators repeated it in every language. Princess Valera had accepted a bond-vow. Ethan stared at her, his breath shallow. I was joking," he said softly, almost begging. Valera's eyes met his. "Among my people," she replied, her voice gentle but unbreakable, "there are no jokes. When it comes to honor." That was the moment Ethan realized something terrible and beautiful at the same time. His words had weight. Here, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Ethan could hardly breathe. The words still hung in the air, heavier than the massive ceiling above him. "I accept," Princess Valera had said, and every translator, every speaker, Every eye in the hall confirmed it. This was real. The most impulsive, stupid thing he had ever done, offering himself as a bond to an alien princess, had not only been heard, it had been accepted. A sudden wave of panic hit him. His face burned. Humans weren't supposed to do this. Humans weren't supposed to matter here. Yet somehow, the most important alien in the galaxy had just accepted his joke. Alien delegates began shouting. Their languages blended into a chaotic symphony of disbelief and anger. One counselor, her scales glinting in the hall lights, pointed at Ethan like he was a dangerous animal. "You cannot accept that," she shouted, her voice sharp as a blade. "He is human. He is weak. He is not worthy of such a bond." Another delegate's voice boomed over the hall. "She binds herself to an untested species." Valera raised a hand. Slowly, methodically, the room silenced. Hundreds of voices stilled. Even the translators could barely keep up. "He spoke with courage," she said, her glowing eyes scanning the room. "He offered himself freely, without demand, without hesitation. That is the highest form of honor." Ethan froze. Courage, honor. He had not meant any of this. He had only wanted to make a fool of himself, to break the tension, maybe get a laugh. Yet somehow, his words had struck something deeper than any assembly, any debate, any law. I was joking," Ethan said quietly, barely loud enough for her to hear. His hands shook as he raised them slightly in surrender. Valera did not smile. She did not laugh. Her expression remained calm, almost serene. But there was something in her eyes of recognition, an understanding that made Ethan's stomach twist. "Among my people," she said softly, "there are no jokes when it comes to vows." Her words felt like a blade wrapped in silk. The hall was silent again, but this silence was different. It was tense, expectant. Every eye was on Ethan. Every translator repeated the words in hundreds of alien languages, each one carrying the weight of centuries of tradition. Ethan's heart raced. His mind spun. He had just committed himself, in front of the entire galaxy, to a bond he did not fully understand. And yet, he could not back out. To do so would be dishonorable, in a way even he, a human, instinctively knew. He stumbled backward slightly, almost tripping over the polished floor, and caught himself against the wall. His legs felt weak. His head felt dizzy. He wanted to run, to disappear, to somehow undo what he had just done. But the truth settled over him like ice. It was already done. The bond had been made. There was no turning back. That night, Ethan sat alone in a small guest chamber. The walls were smooth and cold, illuminated by soft, floating lights that changed color slowly. He buried his face in his hands and tried to calm his racing heart. He expected anger, punishment, maybe even imprisonment. Anything seemed better than this unbearable weight. Then the door opened quietly. Valera entered, moving with a grace that made him feel even smaller. She did not speak immediately. She simply watched him for a moment, her glowing eyes steady and calm. "You may fear me," she said, finally, her voice soft but filled with authority. "But I do not fear you." Ethan lifted his head, stunned. "Why?" he whispered. "You don't even know me. You shouldn't have accepted this bond without knowing me." She walked closer, placing her hand lightly on the edge of the glowing table between them. "Because you offered yourself freely," she said, "without expectation, without bargaining, without hesitation. That is rare even among my people." even among the strongest of my kind. Humans do not give lightly, and yet you did. Ethan's throat went dry. He could barely form words. I never meant it seriously, he said again. It was just a joke, a bad one. Valera's eyes softened slightly, though her tone remained firm. And yet it is real. Your words have weight. Your promise cannot be ignored. That is why I accepted. For the first time, Ethan understood the gravity of what had just happened. The entire galaxy had witnessed a human, almost accidentally, step into something ancient, sacred, and utterly binding. And an alien princess had not just noticed it, had mattered to her. Ethan swallowed hard. His hands still shook, but this time a strange warmth began to spread through him. Something he could not name. Something heavier than fear and lighter than relief. Respect, recognition, connection. That night, alone with the knowledge of what he had done, Ethan realized the galaxy had already changed, and, in ways he could not yet imagine, so had he. The next morning, the Galactic Assembly woke to the story of Ethan's bond vow. Holograms and translators carried the words across the galaxy, repeating them in hundreds of languages. Human offers self in bond to Princess Valera. Every species reacted differently. Some laughed in disbelief. Others whispered warnings. A few stared in awe. The word courage appeared in dozens of alien dialects, always in quotation marks, always questioning if it was real. Ethan, meanwhile, felt the weight of the vow crushing him. He had never imagined that a single sentence could change the perception of an entire species. Humans were seen as fragile, emotional, and untested. Now, every eye in the galaxy waited for proof that he could honor what he had said. Princess Valera did not leave his side. She observed him silently during the first trials, her glowing eyes calm but piercing. The Karai elders, wise and strict, began testing him immediately. First came the questions, moral dilemmas that would make a lesser being break under the weight of choice. They asked how he would act if his planet were destroyed for the sake of the galaxy, if he could betray his own people for a higher cause. If loyalty could ever outweigh logic, Ethan answered honestly. His answers were simple, human, sometimes naive, but they were consistent. Every answer he gave carried the same weight as his original vow. The elders frowned, debated, and occasionally shook their heads, but they could not deny that the human was trying, truly trying. The next trial was physical. He was led to the training grounds of the Karai. Here, the air vibrated with energy as alien warriors demonstrated feats no human had ever imagined. Ethan watched as beings twice his size lifted enormous weights, leaped across vast distances, and struck with power that could crush stone. Then it was his turn. Ethan's muscles burned as he tried to match even the smallest exercises. He stumbled, he fell, he gasped for air, and sweat dripped down his face. The other beings watched, some with disdain, some with curiosity. Many whispered that he would fail quickly, that humans had no place here. But Ethan remembered his vow. He remembered Princess Valera's calm voice. Your words have weight. Your promise cannot be ignored. He refused to give up. Every time he fell, he pushed himself harder. Every time he felt weak, he reminded himself that he had spoken a word in front of the entire galaxy and that it mattered. Days passed, then weeks. Exhaustion became constant, but so did his determination. Slowly, the Karai elders began to nod. Slowly, alien spectators began to whisper in respect. And through it all, Princess Valera remained nearby. She never offered help, never gave advice, but her presence alone was a steadying force. Then the most dangerous trial arrived. A rival empire challenged the bond vow, claiming humans were unworthy of such honor. The assembly demanded Ethan face a diplomatic mission alone, negotiating peace between two warring species that had been in conflict for centuries. No weapons, no guards, just his words and his human courage. Ethan felt fear clawing at his chest. He knew that failure could mean death. Yet he also knew that stepping back would dishonor his vow. With a deep breath, he prepared himself for the impossible. "You may fear the outcome," Valera said softly as he departed, "but do not fear yourself. You have already proven more than you know." In the neutral star system, Ethan faced leaders who had killed each other without hesitation for generations. Their eyes were sharp, their weapons ready, and their patience thinner than air. He spoke slowly, choosing words that humans valued but aliens often ignored: honesty, understanding, and persistence. He spoke of Earth, of mistakes, of love for life itself. Hours passed. Tension filled the empty spaces between words. Every gesture could trigger war. Every silence could signal betrayal. And yet, slowly, inch by inch, his words began to sink in. When Ethan returned to the assembly, he was exhausted. His clothes were torn, his body battered, and his mind numb. But the reaction was not the one he expected. There were no cheers. There were no celebrations. Only silence. The silence, however, was different. It was no longer disbelief. It was respect. Every species, every delegate, every eye that had doubted him now recognized something they had not expected. A human could stand alone and honor a word in a way that carried weight across the galaxy. That night, as he sat beside Princess Valera in the quiet of the observation chamber, he felt a mixture of relief and awe. She did not smile, but her glowing eyes held approval. "You kept your word," she said softly, "even when the galaxy expected you to fail." Ethan nodded. He could barely speak. "I didn't think I could," he admitted. "I thought maybe it was just luck." Valera shook her head slightly. "It was not luck. You are human, and humans, when they give their word, they give everything. That is why I accepted you. That is why I trust you." For the first time, Ethan understood the true meaning of honor, loyalty, and courage, not as abstract ideas, but as something that could be lived and felt. He realized that a single human could change the galaxy, not through power, not through weapons, but through the strength of a promise kept. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the beginnings of something stronger than fear or doubt. A hope that humans, fragile as they seemed, could belong among the stars. The council was merciless. Alien delegates from dozens of species crowded into the chamber, their wings, tails, and claws shifting with tension. Every eye turned toward Ethan, even from a distance. Princess Valera's glowing eyes seemed to weigh him like a scale, judging if he was worthy of the vow he had offered. The whispers had grown into accusations. Humans were reckless, weak, and untested. Many demanded that the bond vow be an. Some even called for his execution to restore balance to the galaxy. Ethan's stomach twisted. Fear clawed at his chest. Yet he remembered Valera's words: "Do not fear yourself. You have already proven more than you know." He stood straighter, raising his chin, though his knees felt like liquid. This was not a physical trial anymore. This was judgment, and it was far more dangerous. The wrong answer could mean death not just for him, but for the fragile reputation of humanity in the galaxy. A massive, scale-covered counselor spoke first, her voice like thunder. Humans cannot be trusted with such honor. This species is too young, too weak, too impulsive. The vow is meaningless if made by one so fragile. Valera's voice cut through the room. He offered himself freely. His words were not meant to deceive or manipulate. That is enough. The chamber erupted again. Shouts, accusations, and translations overlapped. Yet through it all, Ethan felt something surprising. He was calm. The fear still lingered, but it no longer controlled him. He knew he could not hide. He had to speak. He had to face them. "I am human," he said, his voice trembling slightly at first, then gaining strength. "And yes, my species is young, small, and inexperienced. But we are alive, we care, and we try even when the odds are against us. I cannot offer power, I cannot offer weapons. I can only offer my word, and I will honor it, no matter what." The room went silent. Even translators paused, as if the galaxy itself had stopped to listen. Another counselor, with wings shimmering like liquid metal, leaned forward. "Words are meaningless unless backed by strength. You speak of promises, yet humans have not proven they can survive the dangers of the galaxy." Ethan nodded, feeling his heart's hammer. "Then I will prove it," he said. "I will negotiate peace between two warring species alone. No weapons, no guards, just my word. If I fail, I accept any punishment. But if I succeed, then my word will have meaning." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Alien leaders whispered. None expected him to survive, let alone succeed. Humans were never tested like this. Humans were never alone against the galaxy's harshest challenges. Valera's voice, calm and strong, filled the hall again. "He has given his word. He will stand alone. That is enough for me. Do not underestimate the strength of a human who keeps a promise." Weeks passed as Ethan traveled to a neutral star system, where two ancient enemies faced off with distrust and hatred sharper than any blade. The delegation looked at him with suspicion. The weapons at their sides gleamed under artificial lights, silent threats in case he failed. Ethan remembered his training, his exhaustion, and the promise he had spoken in front of the entire galaxy. He could not falter. Every word mattered. Every gesture mattered. Every second could decide life or death. He spoke slowly. He explained Earth, his people, the mistakes humans had made, and the lessons they had learned. He spoke of loyalty, honor, and the courage to try despite fear. He did not threaten. He did not lie. He spoke truth, and something strange happened. The leaders listened. Hours turned into days. Conflicts that had lasted centuries loosened, and tension in the room slowly shifted. Weapons were lowered. Eyes softened. Finally, the two species reached an agreement, not perfect, but real. A fragile peace born from the words of one human. When Ethan returned to the assembly, he was exhausted, battered, and changed. His clothes were torn. His body ached. Yet, as he stood before the council, something had shifted. The same eyes that had doubted, laughed, and threatened now looked at him differently. With recognition, respect, even awe, Valera came to his side, her glowing eyes steady and warm. She did not need to speak. Her presence alone said what words could not. Ethan understood. He had not only honored his vow, He had proven that humans could stand alone, even in the face of the galaxy, for the first time. He felt the weight of being human in a vast universe and the incredible potential of the species. He had always thought so small. This trial had been more than survival. It had been proof, and the galaxy would remember it. The observation chamber was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of distant stars outside the massive window. Ethan sank into a chair, his body still aching from weeks of trials, his mind spinning from everything that had happened. He had survived the council, negotiated peace between two warring species alone, and returned to find the galaxy staring at him differently. Yet none of that compared to the one presence that mattered most, Princess Valera. She entered the room without a sound, her movements graceful and deliberate. Her glowing eyes met his, calm yet intense, as though she could see every thought racing through his mind. Ethan felt a strange warmth despite his exhaustion. It was not fear. It was the realization that she had watched him the entire time, silently judging, silently hoping, silently believing. "You kept your word," she said softly. Her voice carried no pride, no authority, only honesty. "Even when the galaxy expected you to fail." Ethan swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. I didn't know I could," he admitted. "I only knew I had to try. I thought, maybe I was lucky. Maybe it would all just end badly and I'd disappear and no one would notice." Valera stepped closer, her hand hovering near his shoulder but not touching him. "It was not luck," she said. "Your strength is not in your size or your weapons. Your strength is here." She placed a hand lightly over her chest, and here she looked into his eyes. "You gave yourself fully, without hesitation, without bargaining, without fear. That is why I accepted you." Ethan's chest tightened. "But I never meant it seriously at first. It was a stupid joke. I didn't know what I was saying." His voice cracked. "I wasn't ready for any of this." Valera shook her head, her glowing hair shimmering faintly in the starlight. And yet it was real. Even a joke, when it is spoken with sincerity in the moment, can reveal the truth about someone's heart. I saw that truth. I trusted it. I trusted you." Ethan looked down, feeling both humbled and overwhelmed. "You trusted me, without knowing me." "Yes," Valera said simply, "because humans, when they give their word, they mean it deeply. You do not give lightly, and when you do, it carries weight no one else expects. You reminded me of something my people often forget, that courage is not measured in size or experience, but in the willingness to risk everything for a promise." Ethan's mind raced. He thought of the council, the trials, the exhausted alien leaders who had watched him negotiate peace. He thought of every step he had taken, every failure he had stumbled through, every time he had doubted himself. And he realized, she had seen all of that. She had not only seen him, she had seen humanity itself reflected in his determination, his loyalty and his courage. "Do you really think humans belong in the galaxy?" he asked quietly. "We're small, fragile, unprepared." Valera smiled faintly, a rare expression that carried warmth and admiration. "Belong. Humans do more than belong. Humans remind us that courage does not come from power, that honor is not measured by blood or scale, that promises are stronger than weapons. Your people are young, yes, but that does not mean you are weak. You are remarkable." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. He had never imagined an alieness, especially one like Valera, A princess of a proud, ancient race would see humans this way. His chest swelled with pride and humility at the same time. It was frightening and exhilarating. "You freed me," Valera continued, her voice softening even more. "I am bound by this vow, yes, but I am not trapped. I am choosing you because your words, your actions, and your courage have proven that you are worthy. You have reminded me that life, no matter the species, is about heart and honor first." Ethan reached out hesitantly, his hand shaking. For a moment, their fingers hovered above each other, the space between them charged with meaning. He had never expected to feel this connection, this respect, this something deeper. "Thank you," he whispered. "I never wanted to trap you. I didn't even know if I could keep my word." Valera's glowing eyes softened into something almost human. "And yet you did. That is enough. That is more than enough." Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly, feeling a strange mixture of relief and awe. He had survived, yes, but it was more than survival. He had earned trust, honor, and respect in a way he never imagined possible. And he had discovered something even more powerful. That sometimes, giving your heart even when it feels reckless changes everything. The stars outside the chamber shimmered quietly, as if the universe itself had paused to witness this fragile human courage. Ethan looked at Valera and realized that in her eyes he was not just a man. He was the embodiment of what his species could be, a small spark of hope capable of touching the vast galaxy in ways no one had expected. And for the first time, he truly believed it. The council chambers buzzed with quiet murmurs that carried across the vast hall. Weeks of trials, negotiations, and displays of courage had passed, and now the final decision was near. Ethan stood at the center, flanked by Princess Valera, her glowing presence steady beside him. Hundreds of alien delegates watched him, some curious, some skeptical, some clearly angry. Humans were still newcomers, still fragile, and yet here he was alive, unbroken, honored. The head counselor, an enormous figure with translucent wings and eyes like molten silver, cleared their throat. After careful deliberation, they said, their voice echoing across the chamber, "It is the judgment of this council that the bond vow between Ethan Cole of Earth and Princess Valera of the Karai shall stand." A stunned silence fell. The words repeated in translators across the galaxy, "The bond vow shall stand." Some delegates gasped, others whispered angrily, a few dared to clap. No one had ever witnessed a human gain such recognition so quickly. Humans had entered the galaxy as weaklings, as observers, as jokes. Now they were respected. Now they were taken seriously. Ethan's knees felt weak, but he stood tall. He glanced at Valera, and she offered him the faintest of smiles. It was not pride, not arrogance, but something far rarer. Trust and acknowledgement. In that moment, Ethan realized that this recognition was not just about Hemet, was about all humans. Their courage, their honor, and their willingness to risk everything had been seen and validated by the galaxy. Over the following days, trade agreements opened, alliances formed. The galaxy that had once dismissed humanity as fragile and foolish now sought their perspective, their loyalty, their counsel. And yet Ethan never claimed glory. He never asked for titles or praise. He did not even think of himself as a hero. He had done what he promised. That was enough. Valera remained by his side, often quietly observing. She did not interfere in council discussions, but her mere presence was a symbol of strength. Her people, the Karai, began to soften toward humans, respecting them not for their technology or armies, but for their courage, their honesty, and their heart. Ethan learned something remarkable in those weeks. Respect is not demanded. Respect is earned, quietly, through small acts that others might call foolish or reckless. He had walked into the assembly as a joke, a human among gods, and he had earned respect by being himself, honest, brave, and determined. One evening, as the twin moons of the neutral system reflected off the council hall's polished floor, Valera approached Ethan. "Do you understand what this means?" she asked, her voice calm but deep. "I think so," Ethan replied slowly. "It means humans are finally seen for who we can be, not just who we appear to be." Valera nodded. "Yes, and it also means something else." She tilted her head slightly, her glowing eyes searching his. "It means that when we make a vow, we do not just change ourselves, we change the galaxy." Ethan felt the truth of her words settle over him. He had offered a word, a joke, a promise that he didn't even think he could keep. And that small human act had rippled outward, reshaping opinions, challenging assumptions, and earning a place for his people in a galaxy that had long dismissed them, the press of the galaxies. News networks tried to capture the moment, but nothing could convey its depth. It was not the treaties, not the agreements, not the recognition, it was the principle. Humanity had entered the galaxy not with firepower, not with dominance, but with honor and courage. That had never been done before. Ethan stood on the observation balcony, looking out at the vast stars beyond. Valera came to stand beside him. The twin moons reflected in her eyes, and Ethan realized she had become more than a princess to him. She was a witness, a partner, someone who had chosen him freely in a way that transcended politics, tradition, or even species. He laughed softly, a quiet, human sound. "I really thought it was a joke at first," he said. Valera turned to him, her glowing gaze steady. "And I knew it was not," she replied simply. "Even a human joke can be true if it comes from the heart." Ethan felt warmth he had never known. For the first time, he believed in the power of small acts, in promises made honestly, in courage that refused to yield. He realized that humans, fragile as they seemed, could rise to challenges no one imagined. They could earn respect not through fear, not through strength, but through honor. The galaxy watched them rise, and in that quiet observation, a human's voice, a human's courage, and a human's heart had changed everything. It was not just victory. It was the beginning of something far greater, a recognition that humanity could belong, and even lead, by simply being true to itself. The galaxy would never forget that day, not because of battles or politics, not because of treaties or alliances, but because a human had spoken a single word and changed the hearts of countless beings. Ethan Cole, a small man from a small blue planet, had offered himself in a bond vow to Princess Valera of the Karai. What had begun as a desperate, foolish joke had become the strongest promise in the galaxy. Ethan stood on the balcony of the Karai Palace, looking out at stars he had never imagined visiting. He still could not believe how far he had come from a frightened human in a crowded assembly, hauled to a figure who now carried the respect of dozens of alien species. His uniform was worn, his body still sore from the trials, yet he felt stronger than ever, not because of his body or weapons, but because of the honor he had earned, the vow he had kept, and the trust he had inspired. Valera joined him quietly. Her silver blue skin shimmered under the starlight, and her glowing eyes held a warmth he could feel even from a distance. She did